5 minutes to 6. Darrell sat on the porch steps, elbows resting on his knees, eyes fixed down the street like he could pull his mother into view just by willing it. The neighborhood felt wrong. No cars passing, no neighbors outside. Even the usual evening sounds felt like they'd been turned down. Juju sat beside him, legs tucked in, gently scratching behind BB's ears. She said she'd be back by 6, she said softly, more to reassure herself than him. Darrell checked his watch again. 5:56. He looked at her. No, she said before 6. Before sunset. Juju frowned, glancing up at the sky, the light already slipping away faster than it should. But it's not even... Darrell shook his head, cutting her off, his eyes moving back to the street. Juju. If she comes back after that... He hesitated. The words didn't want to come out. Don't open the door. That landed. Heavy. Juju stared at him now, really looking, trying to understand why her big brother suddenly sounded like this. Before she could say anything, BB stood up. No playful energy, just alert. The little corgi turned and padded toward the front door, nose low, sniffing along the bottom edge like something was leaking through the cracks. He paused, sniffed again, then looked back at them, ears up, eyes sharp. A low, uneasy sound rumbled in his chest. Not a bark, but an alarm. Darrell felt that same feeling in the pit of his stomach. He stood up slowly. Yeah, he muttered more to himself than Juju. Let's go inside. Juju hesitated, glancing once more down the street. Still empty. Still wrong. Darrell reached for the knob. Come on, now. Juju grabbed BB's collar gently and stood, staying close to Darrell as he opened the door. The moment they stepped inside, he shut it quickly behind them. Click. Darrell remembered what his mother told him. Standing there in the doorway, pulling on the gun belt of her deputy uniform. Lock the doors. Lock the windows. Her voice was calm, but her hands told the truth. They moved nervously as she checked her pistol, like she was holding it for the first time. Don't let anyone in. That part stayed with him the most. He could still see the way she looked at him when she said it, as a hardcore, unbreakable rule. Then added, and watch your sister. She reached out, resting her hand on Juju's head. Just a second longer than usual, like letting go cost her something. And be safe. Her voice dropped then, soft, like she already knew safe wasn't something she could give him. Then she looked at him, really looked at him, and whatever she saw made her decide. You're the man of the house? Until I come back? Darrell didn't argue, didn't ask questions. He just nodded, because that's what she needed, just agreement. The same morning she left to go find their father, because he hadn't come back, not since the curse began, a day and a half ago. But something had come back last night. They heard it first, a voice outside the door, his voice, weak, desperate, pleading, please, let me in. Juju had frozen. Darrell had already started toward the door. But their mother stepped in front of it. Her pistol drawn and ready, she took the safety off without hesitation and stared at the door. She didn't unlock it, because something wasn't right. The voice sounded like him. But the tone was wrong, flattened, strained, like something wearing his words instead of speaking them. Then the begging stopped, and the screaming began. A howl tore through the night, too deep, too broken to be human. Something slammed against the door, once, twice, each impact shaking the walls, rattling the frame, splintering the silence. Juju screamed. Darrell stumbled back. Their mother braced the door with her whole body as the pounding grew violent, desperate, inhuman, like something trying to remember how to be let inside. And in that moment, she knew. Whatever was out there wasn't her husband anymore. She went back to the military file her husband left, her hands steady as her eyes scanned the words. A stake through the heart will release the victim and give them peace. So that became her mission, not to find her husband, but to give him peace. Daryl sat on the living room floor, silently, watching Juju, watching Bibi, panting softly, eyes fixed on the door.
Welcome back to Obsidian Quill Publishing. Nightmares. Thanks for stopping by. And remember, your likes, subscriptions, and notifications help this channel grow and bring more stories out of the dark. And speaking of nightmares, tonight's story is an epic tale about a family torn apart by something supernatural and ghoulish. Something that didn't start here. A legend that followed someone home and turned the world upside down. So turn the lights down, and whatever you do, don't open the door. This is Juju and Bibi and the Vertilac Apocalypse.
Juju looked up at her brother, her voice small, fragile. Tell me a story, Daryl. One with Mommy and Daddy. Daryl exhaled slowly, not because he didn't have one, but because he had too many, and none of them felt safe anymore. Still, he nodded and forced a smile. He spoke softly, like the wrong word might cause something terrible to enter the room. Mom and Dad, he began, his voice low, steady. Juju blinked slowly, her small fingers curled into Daryl's sleeve as she listened. Mom had this craving, he whispered, his voice softer now, like he didn't want to disturb the memory. Cherries Jubilee, not just any dessert. That one. And Dad, he'd drive an hour just to get it for her. Juju's eyes stayed on him, heavy but warm. But one night, Daryl continued, a faint smile pulling at his lips. He said, I can do this myself. Said it was getting too expensive making that trip all the time. He let out a quiet breath. So he found a recipe, tried it right there in our kitchen. He glanced down at her. And you know what? He nailed it. Mom said it was even better than the one from the restaurant. His voice softened even more. She said while she was eating it, she could feel you dancing around inside her, like you already loved it too. Juju's grip loosened just a little, sleep beginning to claim her. They were going to name you Cherry, he said gently. But I told them, nah, that's not her. A small, proud smile. I said your name should be Jubilee, something special, something that meant joy. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. And I called you Juju. And it just stuck. By the time he finished, her breathing had deepened, soft and steady. Daryl looked down at her, resting there in his arms. And for a moment, the world felt quiet again. Bibi lay curled beside her, pressed close, breathing slow, steady, but its eyes were open, unblinking, staring toward the front door. Daryl followed that stare. The porch creaked, then moaned like something heavy stepped onto it. A slow, tired shuffling sound, like something remembering how to walk. Bibi's head snapped up. A low growl rolled out of his chest, then a sharp bark that shattered the quiet. Juju jolted awake. Shh, Daryl whispered quickly, pulling her close, his hand gently covering her mouth. It's okay. It's okay. But Bibi didn't think so. His hackles rose like bristles on a brush, body stiff, eyes locked on the door. Then, a knock. Soft. Daryl? The voice came through the wood like a memory. It's me. Open up. Juju's eyes lit up through the fear. It's Mommy. Daryl tightened his hold, shaking his head, his voice barely a breath against her ear. No. Her face crumpled, confusion turning to tears. Mom has her keys, he whispered. You remember? She keeps them on her belt. She wouldn't knock. She wouldn't ask. Another knock, a little louder this time. Please, baby, open the door. Juju trembled. She sounds cold. I know, Daryl said, swallowing hard. I know. Slowly, carefully, he stood, keeping one arm wrapped around her. Together they moved toward the window. Each step felt like it didn't belong to them. The knocking came again. Juju, it's me, Mommy. Open up, darling. Daryl lifted the curtain just enough to see, and his world broke. On the porch stood something wearing their mother's uniform. Its eyes burned red. Its face wasn't a face. A bleached deer skull stretched where its skin should have been, antlers clawing upwards at the night sky. Torn fabric clung to its body, and behind it, something taller, broader. It stood still like it was waiting. He recognized what it was wearing. A military uniform, twisted around a body that wasn't right anymore. Daryl's breath caught. He didn't say it out loud. He didn't have to. He knew. Mom. Dad. The things at the door tilted their heads slowly, listening. Then, the banging started. Violent. Sudden. The door shook in its frame as fists, or something worse, slammed against it. The voices changed. No more pleading. No more pretending. Now they were deeper, demonic, twisted. Open it! Let us in. You belong to us. BB exploded into frantic barking, throwing himself toward the door, teeth bared, legs braced. The knob rattled hard, twisting back and forth, faster, angrier. But it never opened. It couldn't. Daryl pulled Juju back, holding her tight against his chest. As long as we don't open it, he whispered, though his voice trembled, they can't come in. They need us to let them in. That's the rule. Juju buried her face into him, sobbing. Make it stop. Please, Daryl. Make it stop. He held her tighter, rocked her gently. I've got you, he said, even though his eyes never left the door. I've got you. I'm right here. The house trembled with every knock against the wood. The voices cursed, screamed, promised things no child should ever hear. BB continued to bark and growl. Juju called him over and shushed him. Then he sat in front of them, guarding them, letting out low growls of displeasure and a promise to bite whatever was on the other side of the door. Hours stretched, but the door held and Daryl never let go. The banging and noise stopped at 5:30 a.m., not all at once, but like a storm losing its anger. The sun was rising, and streaks of yellow light began to shine through the blinds and light up the wall. He heard one last tap against the door. Then it silenced. He didn't move. He stayed exactly where he was, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, Juju tucked against him, BB planted firmly between them and the door like a small, breathing barricade. Then, a sound of shrieks filled the night. It was a sound of humans in agony, wrapped into a painful stage of pain, as if they were suffering and begging to be put down. The noise carried from outside, stretching across the street like something being pulled apart. Painful wails followed, layered and distant, like whatever had come was being called back. Carefully, he shifted, easing Juju's head off his chest without waking her. He moved to the window and lifted the blinds. Just a sliver. Outside, the street was alive, but not the way it had been. The vertilac were moving, not toward the house, but away. Slow at first. Then with quickly some dropped to all fours and galloped into the forest. Others limped, a few staggered. All of them turned in the same direction. The woods. Daryl watched as the two that had stood at their door lingered the longest. For a moment, they didn't move. Then they turned and joined the others, running like they were undecided to continue on 2 or 4 legs. The streetlights cut off overhead as the last of them disappeared into the tree line, swallowed by shadows like they had never been there at all. Daryl let the blind fall. He exhaled, a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He looked down. BB was there, sitting, panting, looking up at him as if he was asking, "Is the coast clear?" Daryl reached down and scratched behind his ears. "Good boy," he whispered. BB's stubby tail moved softly. Daryl stood slowly, joints stiff, the house suddenly feeling too quiet, too empty. He walked into the kitchen, opened a cabinet, pulled down the bright-colored cereal box Juju liked, the one with the cartoon mascot that didn't belong in a morning like this. He set out a bowl, set out milk. Then he grabbed a can from under the sink, cracked it open. The familiar scent filled the air as he set BB's food down. "Eat," he said gently. BB didn't hesitate this time. Daryl turned back, walked to his sister, knelt beside her. He brushed a few strands of hair from her face, his voice soft again, steady on purpose. "Hey, Juju, wake up." She stirred, blinking. Safe. For now. "Come on," he said, offering a small, tired smile. "Brush your teeth. Breakfast is ready." Like it was just another morning. Like the world outside hadn't changed overnight. Like big brothers could still hold things together with cereal. After breakfast, they put the cereal bowls in the sink. Bibi licking the last of his food from the dish. Juju humming softly as she wiped her mouth. Daryl stood at the front door. His hand rested on the knob. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he unlocked it. The click sounded louder than it should have. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. Juju nodded. Bibi moved first, positioning himself low and ready. Daryl opened the door. Careful. The morning air slipped inside, cool, stale, and calm. He stepped out onto the porch and stared. The neighborhood wasn't a neighborhood anymore. Doors hung open like broken mouths. Windows were shattered, porches stained with dark streaks of blood. Across the street at Mrs. Alvarez's house, the front door was wide open. A long, dark trail led from inside, dragged across the steps, down the walkway, into the street. House after house. Empty. Signs of a struggle or battle, depending its residents, gone. Daryl's chest tightened. Juju stepped out behind him. "Where is everybody?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He couldn't answer, because he already knew. Then movement. From down the street. Daryl turned, an old man, hunched but moving fast, almost stumbling as he rushed toward them. "Hey, hey!" the man called out, voice shaking. "Hey!" Daryl tensed, stepping slightly in front of Juju. The man got closer, breathing hard, eyes wide with something between fear and relief. It was Mr. Givens, a retired teacher and widower who lived 3 houses down. Always waved, always kept to himself, always walked with a book tucked under his arm. Now, there was no book, no calm, just a overwhelming sense of gratitude. "You're alive," Mr. Givens said, almost laughing, almost breaking down and crying. "Thank God. I thought—" He stopped himself, swallowing hard. "I thought I was the only one left." BB sniffed the air, then slowly loped towards Mr. Givens, his stumpy tail wagging as he begged for the man to pet him. He was human, all right, but Daryl didn't lower his guard. "Anyone else survive?" Daryl asked. Mr. Givens looked around like the street might answer for him. "No one else. They came last night, just like that. Knocking, calling, sounding like people they knew." Juju tightened her grip on Daryl's sleeve. Mr. Givens continued, voice dropping. "Some folks opened their doors then. They screamed. But they didn't scream long." An awkward silence crept in between them. BB let out a playful yap. Mr. Givens pet the dog. Then looked back at Daryl. "We all are still here for one reason," Mr. Givens said, steady now, not shaken, certain. We didn't open our doors. He stepped closer, lowering his voice, not out of fear this time, but focus. These things, Vertilac, they're real old world monsters. Part vampire, part werewolf, part zombie infection. All nightmare. He paused. They kill family first by tricking their way into the home using familiar voices. One bite can change you into one of them. That is, if the possessed bites you within the first 3 days after they get bitten. After 3 days, they become savage monsters that hunt and feed, and no locked door can protect us then. Daryl's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. Mr. Givens nodded toward the street. But listen to me, this isn't the end. He pointed past the neighborhood toward the distant skyline, tall buildings catching the early light like something still standing. The city, there's shelter and help. If anyone held the line, it would be there. More people, more resources, maybe even organized resistance. He looked back at Daryl, something stronger now in his eyes. We're not trapped here, he said. We're early. Juju looked between them, hopeful but unsure. Mr. Givens gave her a small, reassuring smile. They're strongest at night. Slower in daylight. Tonight, they will come back. Some of our friends and neighbors have been bitten more than 3 days ago. He straightened up, shoulders squaring like a man remembering who he used to be. That means we've got an advantage. Daryl glanced at the empty houses, then back toward the skyline. You're saying we move now, he said. I'm saying we move now, Mr. Givens replied. Daylight travel. Stick to open streets. Stay together. He gestured back toward the house. We gather what we can, food, water, anything useful. Pack light, move fast. We can take my car. BB gave a quiet bark, like he agreed. Mr. Givens nodded toward the dog. And we've got him, he said, pointing at the corgi. He's got better senses than all of us. Then his voice softened. I'm sorry about your parents. I saw them, or what's left of them, but staying here isn't safe. Daryl looked down at Juju. She nodded, not scared this time. Let's go. Daryl looked back at Mr. Givens. All right, he said. Mr. Givens smiled just a little. Moments later, they piled into Mr. Givens's Prius, doors locked. The engine turned over. Silent, the dashboard lit up as it was put into gear. Then the car crept forward into a street that no longer felt like a street, just a corridor of emptiness and ruin. At first, every direction they took was choked. Cars sat at odd angles, doors left open, some still idling, others crushed beneath fallen branches and power lines that sagged like dead veins across the road. Trash cans rolled lazily in the wind. Somewhere in the distance near the trees, some figures moved. Daryl leaned forward between the seats. What do we do? What do we do? Mr. Givens didn't answer right away. His hands stayed steady on the wheel, but his eyes, they were moving, calculating, searching for a way out that might not exist. We double back, he said finally, low and controlled. There's always another way. He turned the wheel sharply. The Prius spun around, and that's when they saw them. 3 Vertilac, in the middle of the road, not wandering, working. They pushed against a thick tree, its roots already cracking the pavement, forcing it to tilt, slow, deliberate, until it would fall and seal the street shut completely. They're blocking us, Daryl whispered, the words barely making it out of his mouth. For a moment, everything locked into place. No road forward, no road back, no time. Hold on, Mr. Givens barked. He slammed the accelerator. The Prius lurched off the pavement and onto the first lawn, the suspension groaning as the car bounced hard over uneven ground. Shrubs snapped beneath the tires. A plastic privacy gate exploded into shards as they tore through it, then another, then another. Backyards blurring together into one long, desperate escape route. Behind them, a crack like thunder. The tree came down. right where they had been seconds before. Juju twisted in her seat, breath hitching as she looked back through the rear window. They're coming. Two of the Vertilac had broken off and were following, not fast, not running, just shuffling, restlessly, close enough to see. Still wearing the torn remains of a deputy uniform, badge barely visible due to fur covering it. The other, military fatigues, darkened and ripped and clinging to something that barely resembled a man anymore. Mom? Dad? Juju's voice cracked. They're getting worse. The creatures didn't stop, didn't hesitate. They just kept coming step after step, as if distance meant nothing. The Prius burst through one final fence, and suddenly they were back on asphalt speeding toward an empty road, then an open road. Mr. Givens didn't slow down. The engine hummed as the car shot forward, leaving the suffocating neighborhood behind like a bad dream. In the rearview mirror, the Vertilac grew smaller and smaller, still walking after them until they were nothing more than shapes swallowed by the horizon. But no one in the car said a word. The roads were choked with abandoned cars, frozen mid-escape like a graveyard of steel. The Prius crept through them, weaving slow and deliberate, its tires whispering over debris. Inside, eyes scanned constantly, watching, measuring. In the vehicles around them, the people were no longer people. Some were slumped in their seats, half-eaten, torsos hollowed, jaws frozen mid-scream. Others, crouched in the shadows, fully turned, Vertilac pressed into the darkness of back seats and footwells, their glowing eyes flickering to life as the Prius passed. A claw burst from a shattered window, swiping. Another slammed against the rear door, missed by inches. They didn't chase. They waited. Mr. Givens kept the car angled wide, driving along the opposite side of the road, avoiding the clusters, avoiding the hungry stillness. These poor souls, he muttered, his voice low, almost reverent. They've gone longer than 3 days. He slowed, pointing ahead. Near a wrecked gas station, beneath the sagging shadow of the awning, one of them stood, on all fours, its spine arched too high, limbs too long, head twitching in sharp, unnatural jerks as it sniffed the air. Around it, others lay scattered, motionless at first glance, curled like discarded husks, sleeping or waiting. Completely changed, Givens finished quietly. The creature's head snapped toward the car, and for a moment, everything on that road felt wrong, not fast, not chaotic, slow, like time itself was dragging every second out, just long enough to feel it. Juju cried softly in the back seat, but it wasn't fear. It was knowing, the kind that hits like a gut punch. Her parents were going to become those things. Darryl felt it too. At the exact same moment, he didn't look at her right away. He kept his eyes forward, jaw tight, trying to hold himself together like something solid, something older than he really was. But the tears came anyway, quiet at first, then slipping down his face one after another, betraying him. He swallowed hard and turned to her. Jubilee Jewel, he said, his voice firm, trying to sound stronger than he felt. I need you to be brave for me. His hand reached back, searching. 'Cause I'm trying to be brave for you. Juju didn't hesitate. Her fingers found his instantly, small, trembling, but tight. She held on like it was the only real thing left in a world that was slowly changing around her. They drove. At first, it was the same careful weaving, the same slow crawl between abandoned cars. Then something changed. Mr. Givens eased onto the on-ramp and pressed the gas. The Prius picked up speed. No swerving, no obstacles, no resistance. His brow tightened. That's odd, he muttered. The highway stretched out ahead of them, wide, open, empty. Not a single car moving, not one. Every vehicle they passed was shoved off to the side, crumpled against guardrails, angled on the shoulder, doors left hanging open like something had fled in a hurry or been dragged out. The tires hummed louder now as they gained speed. Miles passed. 1, 3, 5, 8. Nothing changed. No movement. No survivors. Just the long, hollow stretch of road leading forward like it was guiding them somewhere they didn't want to go. Then the signs appeared. Toll Bridge, city limits. Mr. Givens leaned forward slightly, squinting, and then his face drained, color vanished, all of it. Oh. No. His voice cracked, barely holding together. They blew it up. He slammed the brakes. The car shuddered to a stop. Silence rushed in. They stepped out slowly, carefully, like the world might break if they moved too fast. And then they saw it. Where the bridge should have been, there was nothing. Just jagged concrete teeth stretching out into empty space. Steel cables hung loose, twisted and broken, swaying against the wind. On the other side of it, the city stood untouched, close enough to see, impossible to reach. Behind them, their suburb, their small piece of the world, destroyed, overrun with death and nightmares with bleached skulls and fangs. At that moment, it felt like someone had drawn a line and decided whatever was on this side stays. Mr. Givens glanced down at his watch. 10 minutes to 11. He exhaled slowly, then straightened, like a man refusing to let the world decide the ending. Come on, kids. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. He lifted a hand and pointed off to the right. There, half hidden through a break in the trees, a causeway intact, weathered, cracked, but standing. We crossed there, he said, voice firm now, decided. For the first time since they'd stopped. Hope. Then, a sound of a helicopter roared overhead. The air shattered as a black helicopter tore across the sky overhead, low and fast. Daryl's head snapped up. Hey! Hey! He ran forward, waving both arms, jumping, trying to make himself seen. We're down here! The helicopter remained oblivious. Didn't tilt. Didn't even hesitate. No acknowledgement of their presence. It just kept going. The sound faded as quickly as it came, swallowed by distance. Daryl stood there for a second, arms still raised. Then slowly, they dropped. Mr. Givens watched the sky for a moment. No worries, he said, trying to sound upbeat. He turned back toward the car. Come on. They climbed back into the Prius. Doors shut, engine turned, and with one last look at the broken bridge behind them, Mr. Givens turned the wheel. The car rolled forward, then curved off toward the smaller road. As they approached the narrow stretch of the causeway, the tension seemed to loosen, like the world itself was taking a slow, steady breath. I'm hungry, Juju said softly. Mr. Givens glanced at the road ahead, then at the sky. It's almost noon. We'll stop here and eat before we cross. He reached over, patting a small container. Brought some fried chicken. It's my wife's recipe. Figured it'd be better shared than wasted. Daryl nodded, the edge in his voice gone now. He looked at Juju, then at BB, sitting faithfully beside her. All right, just don't let him wander, and don't go too far. Juju's smile spread wide and easy, bright as daylight, while BB stayed close at her side, the moment settling into a quiet pocket of peace before the road ahead. At exactly noon, they sat in an easy circle, Juju and Daryl tucked into the open hatchback of the Prius, their legs dangling, while Mr. Givens rested on a small camping stool opposite them. The world felt paused there, balanced between what had been and what was coming. Laughter came easier now, light and unforced, as they passed pieces of fried chicken between them. Now that, Mr. Givens said with a satisfied nod, is some good chicken. Juju giggled, her shoulders relaxing, and even Daryl let a small smile slip through. After a moment, Mr. Givens leaned back slightly, his voice easing into something thoughtful, but still calm. Want to know a little secret? I taught your parents back in high school. Darrell looked up, surprised. Your mother, he continued, was one of the brightest students I ever had. Made teaching feel like a reward all by itself. A soft smile lingered. Your father, Lord, he was different, sharp but restless, always questioning. He gave a quiet chuckle. But I pushed back, and when he walked out of my class with an C+, I knew I'd reached him. Kind of the warmth of the memory settled over them years later. He continued, when they moved into the neighborhood, your father would stop by often, sit, talk, argue a little. He shook his head fondly. My wife adored him. When my wife died, your mother and father were the first to help me make the arrangements and help me around the house. The air shifted just a touch, though the calm never fully left. When this plague began, Mr. Givens said, his tone steady, your father came to me, gave me a file, and made me promise to look after you all if he didn't come back. Darrell's hand tightened slightly around the food he held. Mr. Givens looked toward the quiet road stretching ahead. It started far from here. Some soldiers, deployed in the mountains of Serbia, they came across a creature. He paused, letting the stillness breathe. They thought they killed it, brought it back to the base. A faint exhale followed, but it wasn't. Somehow it made its way on a plane back to the States and began attacking soldiers. Your dad wanted to destroy the building they were contained in, Mr. Givens said, his voice steady but edged with quiet gravity. But the brass, they wanted to use them, study them, control them. He shook his head slowly. As usual, they got it wrong. A breath passed between them, the calm, holding by a thread. Now your mom and dad are... His story ended abruptly as a loud splash shattered the mood. The sound tore across the water like a cannon shot. All three of them snapped their heads toward the causeway, eyes searching. 2 miles out, the surface of the water churned and spread in a widening wake, ripples racing outward in unnatural waves. Darrell stood, his heart kicking. What the... Juju instinctively pulled BB closer, her smile gone, replaced with a tight, uncertain panic. Mr. Givens rose slowly from his stool, eyes locked on the disturbance, his calm gone, but his fear sharpened his eyesight. Something came down hard, he murmured. Darrell squinted toward the horizon. From where? Mr. Givens didn't answer right away. His gaze lifted, tracing the empty sky above them, then back to the water. Not from here, he said quietly. That fell from high up, 600 feet at least. The ripples continued to spread, too wide. Something's coming toward us. The words barely formed before Mr. Givens snapped, sharp and urgent. In the car, now. BB exploded into barking, sprinting toward the water, paws kicking up gravel. BB! No! Juju lunged, grabbing him just as she looked up. Then she saw it. A horned head broke the surface, slick and pale, cutting through the water with terrifying speed. The vertilac skeletal muzzle rode just above the waves, eyes locked on them, closing the distance far too fast. Juju froze in panic as the creature seemed to lock in on her. For a heartbeat, her breath became shallow. Then Darrell moved. Juju! He grabbed her and BB in one motion, dragging them back and shoving them into the Prius. The door slammed, sharp and final. Move! Mr. Givens was already turning, but his voice cut back over his shoulder, louder now, carrying something worse than urgency. There's more. Up there. Darrell turned. And his stomach dropped. 5 shapes were descending the rocky incline beyond the causeway, moving wrong, too fast, too sure. They bounded down like mountain goats, limbs snapping and stretching, claws digging into stone as they closed in. The nearest one was still 700 yards out. And gaining. Darrell dove into the car. Go! Go now! The Prius shot onto the causeway, tires spitting a thin trail of dust that hung in the noon air. like a fading whisper. Behind them, the water churned the broke. The Vortilac surged forward, its skeletal deer head cutting through the surface, red eyes locked onto the narrow strip of road. It didn't hesitate. It charged, long, powerful strokes driving it toward the support pillars, toward them. Hold on! Mr. Givens pressed his foot down, the engine rising in a strained growl. Darrell twisted in his seat. It's coming fast! Water exploded against the concrete as the creature reached the base of the causeway. Clawed hands latched onto the support leg, dragging its massive wolf-like body upward. 8 feet of muscle and bone hauled itself out of the lake, water cascading off its matted fur. For a moment it climbed, fast, unnatural, closing the distance. Then the Prius roared past it. The creature was halfway up the support when they flew by, so close Darrell could see the cracks in its skull, the wet sheen of its teeth. My God. That one is huge, Mr. Givens breathed, eyes forward. That can't be right. They can't be that big. But something felt wrong. Not just the size. Mr. Givens glanced into the rearview mirror. The Vertilac had made it to the top. It stood in the middle of the causeway, towering, blocking the strip of road they had just escaped. For a second, it looked almost triumphant. Then the sun hit it. Its skin began to blister. Steam curled off its body. Smoke followed. The creature let out a high, broken wail, something between rage and agony as it staggered back, clawing at its own burning flesh. The midday light poured over it like fire. Look at it, Juju whispered, clutching Bibi. The Vertilac shrieked again, stumbling away from the open road, retreating, fleeing, toward the broken edges of the causeway, toward the shadows beneath the ruined bridge. And just like that, it was gone. Only an empty road remained behind them. As they neared the other side of the causeway, the city rose up ahead of them, but not the way cities are supposed to. It wasn't shining. It looked, tired. The buildings were taller, yes, but dulled, windows smeared with grime, facades stained, streets that seemed to swallow light instead of reflect it. Even from a distance, it felt wrong, lived in, and worn down by something no one had cleaned up. The causeway split. A weathered sign leaned slightly, pointing left toward the city. Mr. Givens didn't hesitate. He turned the wheel. The Prius rolled onto the left fork just as a low thunder began to build overhead. Darrell looked up. You hear that? It grew fast, deep, mechanical, relentless. Then they saw them. A squadron of fighter jets tore across the sky, low and fast, slicing through the afternoon like steel blades. They weren't heading toward the city. They were heading back. Back toward the small suburbs, the quiet roads, the places they had just come from. Mr. Givens eased off the accelerator. For a moment, all of them just watched. The jets shrank quickly, streaking away until they were nothing more than dark specks against the sky. Then the sky answered. Flashes. 1, 2, 3. A chain of bright, blooming explosions lit up the horizon, silent for a heartbeat before the distant thump rolled back across the water like a warning carried on the wind. Juju leaned forward, eyes wide. BB let out a low, uneasy whine. Darrell stared, his voice barely more than air. They just dropped bombs. No one spoke after that. The city ahead didn't feel like a destination anymore. It felt like the only place left to go. Mr. Givens let out a slow breath, trying to steady himself. His hands trembled on the wheel, just for a moment, just enough for him to notice. He tilted his head back slightly, eyes lifting toward the open sky. Thank you, Jean, he whispered. The words were soft, and they carried a personal weight, because they'd been said before, in quieter, harder moments. From the back seat, Juju leaned forward just a little, her voice gentle, respectful. Was Jean your wife? Mr. Givens smiled, not a big smile, not a happy one exactly, but a warm one, full of memory. She was, he said, my wife, and my guardian angel here on earth. He glanced upward again, eyes softening. Now she's up there, still looking out for me, for all of us. Juju followed his gaze, peering up through the windshield at the wide blue sky stretching endlessly above them. She folded her hands together for a second, small and sincere. "Thank you, Mrs. Jean," she whispered. Mr. Givens let out a quiet chuckle, the sound easing some of the tension in the car. Then he shifted the gear, the Prius humming back to life as they rolled forward. Up ahead, a weathered road sign came into view. 100 miles to city limits, another sign crept into view, half leaning at the edge of the road. Rest. Stop ahead, beneath it, in rough black spray paint, someone had added, "Beware Cattleman Dave." The letters were jagged, urgent, not a joke. For a moment, no one spoke. The tires hummed softly against the road, the world outside too quiet again. Then Mr. Givens cleared his throat, forcing a bit of normal back into his voice. "Well, I don't know about you two, but I could use a bathroom break." Daryl cracked a small smile, tension easing just enough. "Yeah, same." Juju nodded quickly, and BB perked up at the tone, letting out a short, excited yap like he understood every word. Mr. Givens chuckled under his breath. "Well, that settles it then." He eased the wheel slightly, guiding the Prius toward the exit. The rest stop came into view like a photograph left out in the sun too long, faded, still, wrong. Cars filled nearly every space, not crashed, not scattered, parked, perfectly parked. A line of semi-trucks stood at the pumps, angled like they'd pulled in on purpose, engines long dead, no doors open, no signs of struggle, just empty. One spot remained open near the front. Mr. Givens eased the Prius into it, the tires crunching softly against gravel that hadn't been disturbed in days. "Kids, be careful." The doors opened. BB jumped out first, nose low, tail stiff as he began sniffing the ground like something invisible had passed through and left a question behind. Juju and Daryl followed, staying close without saying it out loud. The air didn't smell right, too clean. They moved inside. The rest stop interior was spotless. Floors swept, counters wiped, trash bins empty. The kind of clean that didn't belong in a place that looked abandoned. Daryl checked the women's bathroom, pushing the door open slowly. One stall at a time. Empty. He stepped back out. "Clear." Juju rolled her eyes, slipping past him. I know. Wash my hands." She smirked. "2 happy birthdays, remember?" "I'll wait out here," Daryl said. BB padded in after her. A few quiet moments passed. Then they returned to the Prius, the stillness pressing in again. Mr. Givens glanced around, eyes narrowing. "This is odd." He gestured lightly toward the lot. "These cars have been sitting for a few days, but those bathrooms, they're fresh," Daryl said. "Too fresh," Mr. Givens replied. They turned to get back into the car. BB's bark split the silence, sharp, urgent. They froze, then slowly turned and found themselves staring straight down the dark, unblinking barrel of a 12-gauge shotgun. A man stood there, calm, steady, like he'd been there the whole time and just decided now was the moment to be seen. Cattleman hat, poncho, eyes that had already measured all of them. "Howdy, folks. Name's Dave. Cattleman Dave."
Well, that's part 1. Told you it was going to be epic. If you made it this far, I hope you'll come back for part 2. Because trust me, this story is just getting started. Thank you for tuning in. Stories like this only happen because of viewers like you. So if you enjoyed the ride, go ahead and like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. And if you want more, don't forget to check out my books, Blood in Brooklyn and The Hunt for Dogman, Parts 1 and 2. Until next time, keep the lights on.